So I mentioned strategy management and scorecard. Now, this is a new feature to OBIEE 11g and a very solid addition, if I may say so. There's a lot of other tools that have been out there who've been trying to incorporate scorecarding, whether it be balanced scorecards or Six Sigma scorecards, etc. And I think what OBIEE 11g is doing is really putting their foot down and creating a solid definition around what a scorecard is. And what is a scorecard? Well, it's a way to provide common departmental or executive views and visions of an organization that are supported by key measurable objectives across one or more perspectives correlated by relationships. So that's a pretty beefy definition, but I'll show you what I'm talking about in some of the screenshots. So as just a use case of why you would use a scorecard in an organization, well, what if your enterprise wants to really get across a common message throughout the organization, and you want to have measurable goals attached to that, but at the same time you want each department to kind of look at their goals and their statuses individually, okay? And then at the same time you want any questions or comments regarding those statuses towards the goals to be available to one or more individuals within the organization. And the way we're doing that is via scorecards. And again, I mentioned it's brand new to OBIEE 11g. With the addition of KPIs, which are key performance indicators, we're really able to align day-to-day decisions with our corporate strategies. And these KPIs can be defined across dimensionality. They can trend, so they're really robust. But the biggest benefit of KPIs for those that are not familiar with them is they provide an immediate visual reference to whether a metric is performing poorly, somewhere in the gray area, or it's doing really well. And you can have variations on those three items, but those are usually the default and the core settings. And I did mention vision and mission statements. So we're able to kind of define at a higher level what the overarching goal or strategy is. And we can do this qualitatively and quantitatively within scorecarding functionality. And in addition to rolling that all into scorecarding, it's ultimately all about communication, and more communication. And so the way we like to look at it is think, Twitter, or for those familiar with Salesforce.com, you've got Chatter, making information available to people within the organization as things change. That way everybody's informed, and then hopefully that leads towards better productivity, etc. And then, as I mentioned earlier, of course it integrates with the EPM suite. So what I mentioned by scorecarding and managing by perspective earlier is, if you can see from the screenshot, we're able to slice and dice our overall vision by individual perspectives. So in this screenshot, we have a financial perspective, a customer perspective, and one more perspective towards the bottom. And what we're trying to show here is, in the financial perspective, we have average order size and increased sales, things that immediately have a relationship to the financial aspect. But in the customer perspective, we have enhancement of customer satisfaction. So you can kind of see how those KPI metrics apply to different perspectives. And if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to begin to show you some of the action framework in action piece of that tool there. And then one other item I want to state on this is, if you see kind of the lines, the arrows going between one KPI and a perspective to the other, well, those arrows in scorecard actually indicate something. And what you're basically doing is you're indicating a correlation between two KPIs. So for example, in the customer perspective, we can see that enhancing customer satisfaction, ultimately there's an arrow going up to the right, so to the 1 o'clock, to increase of sales. So from the vision that we're showing here, if we increase customer satisfaction, ultimately that's going to increase our sales. And so in this next slide, what we want to show is just more communication communication. So here is an example of utilizing part of the action framework, and what we've done is we've selected the option to contact the owner of this particular KPI. And by doing this, we're able to simply provide a quick message, and we might want to ask a question, something like, please tell me why this particular metric has been so volatile. We want to get some feedback. We need an answer on that. And the great thing about providing this communication is you start making individuals responsible for some of the metrics within the organization. So if part of my responsibility is to analyze sales, well, then you might have an individual who's responsible for that, and that person needs to be responsible, and this provides some action to that. And then also, again, we mentioned the action framework. So within the scorecard, looking at the KPIs, you can access the action framework either by right-clicking on the KPI or clicking on the little menu icon in each respective KPI. And the two things to notice here are on the top part of this menu, we're able to provide immediate action. So these could be linking to calling a web service. They could be opening up another report. They could be calling some type of Java method, etc. And then also, we have the ability on this particular KPI to actually drill down into it. So if we're wondering, okay, why is this result blank, or why is this result the number, the value that it is, well, it's actionable now. So we can drill down into it and determine what the makeup of that KPI is at that point in time. And not to adhere to any particular immediate standard for viewing a KPI or your scorecard views, Oracle's provided the ability to create custom views, which is one of the neatest things about scorecard, because again, you don't have to fall into a particular design. You can actually create your own custom views that might reflect an existing scorecarding system that you might have, that you might be sunsetting, or it might provide a better view for your organization. And so just to recap, we had Thomas Kurian, who's an EVP over at Oracle, who said that OBIEE 11g, this solves some of the largest problems IT faces, which don't go away just by hoping that everyone works together. And that's so true, looking at the collaborative cohesiveness of this tool and a lot of the things that Amy and Marty have mentioned. And just to cover some highlights that I think are really exceptional is clearly OBIEE 11g, it's an enterprise best-of-class solution. Just all the tools that are now packed with OBIEE 11g is just amazing. It's such a step up from OBIEE 10g. And we've got powerful integrations over the competition. If you look at some of the white papers that are out there, you've got this beautiful, crisp Web 2.0 interface. And then, of course, I mentioned all metadata is searchable with OBIEE Search. Marty mentioned Map Viewer, which is just eye-catching in itself, but it's very functional, and it does provide a very nice, quick visual representation of information that you can then have actionable, drill down into. BI Publisher, stepping away from the dependency on Microsoft with the Microsoft Word plugin, creating that beautiful thin client tool. Tremendous enhancements in security. We looked at the EPM integration that we're going to have more webinars on, and there's just so many more. Clearly, we couldn't fit it into this webinar. So I'm going to pass this on to Amy, but thank you guys.
Excellent. Well, great, great overview. Very good, and as you can see, there's a lot of information within OBIEE 11g. It's going to be new for many of us to learn and to develop good best practices around, and really kind of think through, how do we provide crisp, great solutions for our end users. We do have just a couple minutes to go through maybe a couple of the questions that came in from a Q&A perspective. Ultimately, we've received hundreds of questions. So, you know, there's just a lot to learn and a lot to know and understand. I'll select a few of the questions here really quickly. Let's see here. So there's some questions in regards to, can you forward the PowerPoint or the link for the recording? And so yes, we certainly will provide the link of the recording of this webinar session for you all to have. And for those of you that were maybe having some issues with audio, you'll be able to have that. Let's see here. What about security? So we'll jump in here. OBIEE security versus S-based security. Christian, do you want to provide us a high level in regards to security when bringing in the multiple sources?
Yeah, so just real quick, when you're looking at OBIEE security compared to S-based security, it's really changed quite a bit from previous versions of S-based clearly. OBIEE 11g works with previous versions of S-based, but it's mostly compatible with 11.1.2, which is the latest release. And the rationale behind that is that it's now under the Fusion middleware framework. So you know, you've got the majority of your security handled pretty much at that layer, and so that's going to be the main difference between even 10G and previous versions of S-based and the newest version of 11G and 11.1.2 of S-based. Hopefully that answered your question.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that, you know, just some of those questions alone, you know, that one specifically, we probably could, you know, spend certainly a whole webinar discussing security. So, again, first of all, I want to thank everyone for attending the webinar today. There's lots of excitement around this new release, and BICG is committed to, you know, enabling yourselves to really embrace the new technology and understand how to utilize it within your environments. As always, during our webinar sessions, we do provide 2 free tokens from our BICG University perspective, and I do have those the names of those winners here. The first one is Andrea Van Pelt with the Newport Corporation, and Andrea will be sending you an email with all the information you'll need to take a free BICG University course. And then we also have Prakash Chainani with Duncan Brands, and again, we'll be sending an email out to you. For everyone else that's joined us today, please look for an email from BICG, including our frequently asked questions white paper. We'll incorporate some of the questions that were asked on today's webinar into that white paper, as well as provide you information on the next webinar that we'll be providing, or we'll be hosting in September timeframe. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a great day.